The first crisis is the Thai-Cambodian border dispute. The Thai-Cambodian border dispute has its roots in the century-old agreement between the kingdoms of Siam and also the French colonial administration, which granted the Cambodia sovereignty over the Preah Vihear temple. In 1962, the International Court of Justice reaffirmed Cambodia's right over the temple. However, the designations of Preah Vihear as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2008 reignited hostilities. The situation escalated to a violent clash in 2011, challenging the ASEAN commitment to non-aggression.
The first international law that applied in Asia is a Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia. It is a foundational diplomatic instrument signed in 1976 among Asian member states and later joined by other nations. It emphasized the commitment to peaceful cohabitations, conflict avoidance, and the pursuit of common goals in the economic, political, social, and cultural sphere, promoting a feeling of regional identity and togetherness. The Scarborough Shoal issue is one of the examples of how the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia (TAC) may be used to resolve disputes between countries. Scarborough Shoal is the one of the Asia's most contested marine features, serving as a hotspot for international conflicts over ownership and fishing rights. To be more specific, this battle began when the Philippines and China took control of the South China Sea. In this case, the Philippines expressed their displeasure when China built a 300-meter-long barrier around the Scarborough Shoal. When China did so, the Philippines replied with a special operation in which Coast Guards dressed as fishermen entered the shoal in tiny motorized boats before diving down with snorkels and masks to cut through the barrier and remove the anchor. The Philippine Coast Guard claimed the expeditions, which was approved by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., demonstrate the country's willingness to keep the presence on the shoal. The Chinese Foreign Ministry warned the Philippines not to engage in provocative behavior. Over the Scarborough Shoal conflict, the Philippines started unclosed arbitration procedures against China. The last tactic is to rely on Asian mechanism. Asian nations have discussed South China Sea conflicts, including the Scarborough Shoal, through regional forums such as the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea (DOC) and current discussion for a South China Sea Code of Conduct (COC). This procedure attempts to enhance conversation, trust, and collaboration among claimant governments. All of the above-mentioned techniques are laws referenced in the Article 2 of the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in the Southeast Asia. The second one is the Southeast Asian Nuclear Weapon Free Zone Treaty is signed by 10 Southeast Asian nations on December 15, 1995. The pact forbids states from developing, manufacturing, or otherwise acquiring, possessing, controlling nuclear weapons, deploying or transporting nuclear weapons, or testing or using nuclear weapons. The states parties further agree not to dump radioactive material or waste into the sea, the atmosphere, or on land inside the zone, and not to permit other countries to do so. The agreement also commits each state party to use nuclear materials and facilities exclusively for peaceful purposes before beginning a peaceful nuclear energy program, to subject the program to a rigorous nuclear safety assessment that complies with the guidelines and standards recommended by the Atomic Energy International Agency (IAEA) for the protection of health and the minimization of danger to life and property. The third one is a Geneva Convention and Additional Protocol, which is international treaties that restrict war atrocities. They defend those who do not participate in the conflict, such as civilians, medical officers, and essential workers, as well as those who are unable to fight, such as injured, ill, and shipwrecked troops, and prisoners of war. There are 4 versions of the Geneva Convention and Additional Protocols. The first convention is designed to safeguard injured and ill soldiers on the battlefield. This covers not to just the injured and sick, but also medical and religious professional medical units and medical transportations. The second invention protects military troops who are injured, ill, or shipwrecked at sea during a conflict. This convention superseded the 1907 Hague Convention for the adoption of the Geneva Convention principle to maritime warfare. It protects medical ships and includes an appendix with sample identity cards for medical and religious work. The third convention deals with the prisoner of war. This convention superseded in 1929 Convention on Prisoner of War. It features 140 articles compared to the 1929 Convention's 97. The terms and location of detention are more explicitly specified, particularly in relation to the employment of prisoner of war, the financial resources, the assistance they get, and the judicial procedures brought against them. The convention established the idea that prisoners of war should be liberated and returned as soon as active hostilities cease. The Fourth Geneva Convention protects people, especially those in occupied territory. It includes a brief section on general population protection against some repercussions of conflict, but does not address hostile activities, which were eventually addressed in the Additional Protocol of 1977. The majority of the convention deals with the status of treatment of protected people, distinguish between the conditions of foreigners in conflict-affected area and civilians in occupied territory. It outlines the occupying power's responsibility to the civilian populations and includes specific measures for humanitarian aid to the people of the occupied area. It also includes a specialized framework for treating civilian inmates. It has three annexes, which is a model hospital and safety zone agreement, a model humanitarian aid legislation, and a model card. The last international law that applied in Asian is Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a document that acts to offer freedom and equality in order to preserve the rights of every individual worldwide. The UDHR 30 rights and freedom include the right to be free from the torture, the right to free expressions, the right to an education, and the right to seek refuge. Civil and political rights such as the right to life, liberty, and privacy are included. Economic, social, and cultural rights are also included, such as the right to social security, healthcare, and suitable housing. In this context, Myanmar has come under international attention and condemnations for a number of human rights breaches, particularly in relation to the treatment of its ethnic and religious minorities such as Rohingya. When the Myanmar government is accused of human rights violation, it frequently violates the UDHR principle. Myanmar has signed the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights (ICCPR) and the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights (ICESCR). The persecution of the Rohingya Muslim minority is addressed as a violation of human rights. Attempts have been made to send the problem to the International Criminal Court (ICC) or to set up an independent tribunal to address this concern. In reaction to human rights violations, some nations and international organizations have placed sanctions on the Myanmar government. Diplomatic initiatives, discussions, and resolutions in international organizations such as the United Nations have also been used to put pressure on the Myanmar government to improve its record on human rights. In a roundabout way, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and international human rights treaties serve as foundation for investigating and responding to human rights crimes in Myanmar. They provide a framework for assessing the Myanmar government activities and holding it responsible for its treatment of minority groups and other human rights violations.
Next, international issues. In recent years, climate change and environmental challenges have risen to the top of the regional agenda, reflecting the global urgency of these issues. Asian nations face economic issues as a result of climate change. Reduced crop yields and rising pest and disease incidents are threatening the agricultural industry, which provides a key source of income for many people. Rising sea levels are threatening coastal infrastructure, which is vital for trade and tourism. Next, Asia is home to some of the most diverse ecosystems on the planet. Rapid urbanization, deforestation, and illegal wildlife trading, on the other hand, have resulted in severe biodiversity loss. This not only has an impact on the region's rich natural history, but it also disrupts ecosystem and can have a severe impact on agriculture and tourism. Aside from that, Asia's urbanization and industrialization have resulted in air and water pollution. Rapid population growth, unregulated industry, and tax enforcement of environmental regulations have all contributed to poor air and water qualities in many cities. To address the concern, Asian established the Working Group on Climate Change or AWGCC to strengthen regional collaboration on climate change issues. The Asian Working Group on Climate Change encourages member countries to share information, best practices, and research on climate change adaptation and mitigation methods. These working groups assist Asian countries in coordinating their efforts and developing shared policies to address climate change. Other than that, the Asian Center for Biodiversity or ACB works on biodiversity conservation and the sustainable use of the region's natural resources. The ACB assists member countries in developing and implementing biodiversity conservation programs and initiatives. Furthermore, ASEAN has implemented a number of programs to combat air and water pollutions, illegal logging, and overfishing, with the purpose of improving environmental quality and safeguarding natural resources. Next, migrant labor. Migrant labor has arisen as a key international problem, presenting Asian countries with both benefits and challenges. Asian member states have seen a significant influx of migrant workers throughout the area. Labor migration is driven by economic differences between countries, with individuals seeking employment opportunities in more economically developed countries. Thailand, Singapore, and Malaysia, for example, are popular destinations for labor migrants. Migrant labor has far-reaching social and economic consequences in both sending and receiving countries. Migrant workers frequently send remittance back to their home nations, so contributing to the economics and their home countries. Labor exploitation, social integration, and cultural differences, on the other hand, can provide difficulties for both migrants and host communities. Moving on to the issues surrounding migrant labor. Many Asian migrant workers are exploited with low wages, poor working conditions, and limited access to labor rights. These issues are frequently ignored, leaving migrant labor exposed. Aside from that, in several Asian countries, the demand for low-skilled labor has resulted in human trafficking and irregular migration. Migrant workers are vulnerable to human trafficking, forced labor, and other forms of exploitation. This issue gave rise to the Asian Declaration on the Protection and Promotion of Migrant Worker Rights. The declaration was passed in 2007 with the goal of protecting the rights and well-being of migrant workers in the region. It provides safeguard for migrant workers, equitable treatment, labor rights, and access to justice. Following that, the Asian Committee on Migrant Workers was formed to monitor and implement the 2007 declaration. The Asian Committee on Migrant Workers is critical in coordinating efforts to preserve and promote migrant worker rights in Asia. Next is transnational terrorism. Transnational terrorism in Asia is mostly related with regional extremist groups and networks. Terrorist acts have been carried out by organizations such as Jemaah Islamiyah, Abu Sayyaf, and the Maut Group. These groups' origins vary, with some linked to worldwide terrorist organizations such as Al-Qaeda and most recently ISIS. Asian transnational terrorist groups used a variety of techniques, including bombings, kidnappings, and armed attacks. Their target range from citizens and security forces to government institutions, place of worship, and tourist attraction, all of which have a substantial impact on regional stability. The challenges associated with transnational terrorism are of a transnational nature. Terrorism has no borders, making it difficult to combat successfully. These groups frequently operate in many nations, taking advantage of porous borders and disparities in security capabilities. Then there are the regional ramifications. Transnational terrorism has regional consequences in Asia. It endangers stability, stifles economic growth, and raises tension among member nations. Terrorist attacks can also impede tourists in trade, affecting many people's livelihoods. Asia's response to transnational terrorism was the adoption of the Asian Convention on Counter-Terrorism in 2007, which pledged members' governments to cooperating in the prevention and suppression of terrorism. It emphasized information interchange, intelligence cooperation, and legislative measures to combat terrorist activity. Aside from that, several member countries collaborate bilaterally and multilaterally with other countries and international organizations to combat transnational terrorism. For example, information cooperation with government outside the region is critical for tracking terrorist movement and preventing strikes. And the last one is human rights violations. Asia has experienced ongoing international difficulties with human rights violations. Asians' human rights breaches can be linked back to authoritarian administration, ethnic disputes, and political repressions. Common violations include restriction on free expansion, arbitrary arrest, torture, extrajudicial execution, and discrimination based on ethnicity, religion, or sexual orientation. Several Asian countries, notably Myanmar, the Philippines, and Thailand, have faced ethnic and religious disputes that have resulted in serious human rights violations, such as relocation, violence against minorities, and denial of basic human rights. Political sovereignty versus human rights is one of the issues linked with the human rights breaches. The Asian Tenet of non-interference in member states' internal affairs has hampered efforts to resolve human rights issues. These principles has frequently been used to protect governments from international scrutiny. Then, there are several legal systems. Asian countries have distinct legal systems, resulting in varying level of human rights protection. The absence of a unified legal framework makes it difficult to address infractions consistently across the region. In response to this issue, Asia adopted the Asian Human Rights Declaration in 2012, which defines the organization's commitment to human rights principles. It has, however, been criticized for being weaker than international standards, and its effectiveness in dealing with human rights violations has been limited. But the Asian Intergovernmental Commissions on Human Rights followed. The Asian Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights was created to promote and preserve human rights within Asia. It carries out human rights advocacy efforts, organizes conversation, and advises Asian members' governments. However, because it lacks enforcement capabilities, its usefulness has been called into question.
Hi, my name is Siti Alindra bint Uludin, and today I will be explaining about the roles of United Nations in ASEAN. The roles of United Nations in ASEAN is disaster risk reductions, preparedness, and response. In recent years, the ASEAN region have faced severe natural disasters such as the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, 2008 Cyclone Nargis, and 2009 Typhoon Ketsana, with global consequences. ASCAP, as one of the United Nations Regional Commission, serves as key platform for collaborations in the Asia-Pacific region. Nations. Its mission is to facilitate inclusive, resilience, and sustainable development by generating knowledge, providing technical assistance, and capacity building services. ESCAPE aligns its national offerings with international and regional framework, agreements, and instruments. Specifically, ESCAPE focuses on disaster risk reductions, supporting the implementations of the HIGO frameworks for actions and enhancing countries' capabilities in managing disaster processes. These include training on the damage and loss assessment methodology, DALA, and the establishment of a new international committee on disaster risk reductions. ESCAPE collaborates with government and development partners to conduct post-disaster damage assessment and formulates recovery and reconstruction strategies. The organization also mobilizes resources and provides technical assistance to enhance the institutional capacity of national committees on disaster management. The second role of United Nations in ASEAN is in food security. In the Southeast Asian regions, food security is pressing concern due to volatile food prices and underweight children. While there is a surplus of food commodities in the Asian regions, there are still challenges in ensuring food security. The impositions of export restrictions on rice during 2007 till 2008 has adverse consequences and disrupted regional solidarity. The Food and Agriculture Organizations collaborates with ASEAN in efforts to improve food security and sustainable agriculture. They engage in various initiatives including animal health, agriculture, water resources management, and fisheries. The FAO also participates in ASEAN's meetings, providing technical expertise. They have organized regional conferences and consultations to promote food security in the regions. The FAO is involved in irrigation modernizations and water management initiatives to enhance agricultural water productions, address water scarcity, and reduce poverty. This includes partnerships with the International Water Management Institutes and the Economic and Social Commissions for Asia and the Pacific (ESCAPES). The United Nations plays a significant role in addressing healthcare challenges and climate-related health issues within the ASEAN regions. The UN, through the Food and Agriculture Organizations, collaborates with ASEAN to control highly pathogenic avian influenza and other animal diseases. This initiative aims to improve the management of animal diseases, strengthen disease risk understanding, and enhance human resources for effective response. The FAO also organizes consultative meetings to discuss national and regional policy framework related to the livestock sector and economic development in the Asian regions. Furthermore, the UN emphasizes the health impact of climate changes, which affect the regions in various ways, from the spread of vector-borne diseases to disruptions in food production and security. It underscores the importance of international collaborations and shares responsibility in addressing these climate-related hazards. In summary, the UN's involvement in ASEAN healthcare sector focuses on improving healthcare access, addressing climate-related health challenges, and controlling animal diseases. These efforts aims to enhance the well-being and health resilience of the ASEAN's populations. The fourth role of United Nations in Asia is in environmental sustainability and climate change. ESCAPE has played a significant role in promoting environmental sustainability and climate change mitigating in ASEAN. ESCAPE advocates for the green growth approach, collaborates with ASEAN to foster low-carbon developments and resilience to climate change. ESCAPE works with the ASEAN Center for Energy to focus on energy-related strategies for climate change mitigations and support the Trans-Asia energy system within the ASEAN sub-regions. Furthermore, the collaborations between ESCAPE and the ASEAN Secretariats is essential for developing an unified ASEAN stance on climate change beyond 2012. The Food and Agriculture Organizations collaborates with the ASEAN Secretariats on various initiatives. This includes the developments and monitoring of the codes of practices for forest harvesting, efforts in fire management, combating illegal logging and trafficking, and strengthening sustainable forest management.